So first I do want to thank, I think Smyra and I want to thank Nancy McCarthy, Sue Nealon, and of course all our colleagues here at Sorensen for putting this on for us. This is going to be, I hope, very easygoing for you guys, casual and simple. I'll say a few words, but I think before I do that, I'd like to ask everybody, I'll start with Olivia and we'll go this way, to introduce themselves, just who you are, what year you are here, maybe anything else you want to say about yourself, and then we'll get going. So I'm going to turn it to Olivia, to my far right.
Perfect. Hello, my name is Olivia Million. I'm a senior here, and I'm happy to be back in the Sorensen Theater.
My name is Jacob Schottmeyer. I am a second-year MBA student here, and I'm excited to talk about free enterprise, and I actually had a social venture before this, so it's kind of right in lines with my my interests, so it's exciting.
Cool. Great. Michael.
My name is Michael Cantaloupi. I'm a junior here at Babson, and I'm excited to how capitalism can be seen as like how it relates back to today's time and how we can cure the separation from the right and the left in today's society.
My name's Ryan Wilson. I'm a first year at Babson and a member of the transfer cohort. And I want to thank you, Dr. Corbett, for the opportunity to discuss free enterprise and just a mindset difference in how we should think about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial ventures. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, lady. I'm going to come to you first, Olivia. Like they jumped in right away with what they think and all that. But I'm going to start again this way, and we'll go this way. But I'll say something first. So I know a handful of you here, and those of you who don't know me, now maybe you know a little bit more about me by what I showed this evening. But it's interesting. There are a lot of things a lot of things I agree with Arthur and his perspective. Some other things that maybe I might think about differently. But I think for all of us, as members of the Babson community, there are a lot of powerful themes that he brings forward in this, depending on how not depending on how you feel about different issues, but certainly where he brings us to the end about happiness and where he brings us about the goals. So think about all the opportunity that we have as members of the Babson community, all the opportunities we may have been given from where we came, from our parents, for our experiences before. And so really for all of us, I think it's about what are we going to do with all that we have. And as an entrepreneur and as someone who studies entrepreneurship, I look at it from that perspective as well. What can entrepreneurship do? I truly believe that entrepreneurship is one of the most powerful forces for good in this world. And so, I tag entrepreneurship with capitalism and free enterprise, and I think we can do a lot of the good that we saw in this film. So that's what I'll say as a preamble. But what I want to ask before we get into maybe a discussion or people have their say is, I was going to say one word, but one word's hard, right? A phrase, just a quick, right? No detail. Quick reaction, a word or a phrase or something that you thought about when you watched what we watched this evening.
I would say a phrase that came to mind was a new perspective.
Fair. I'm going to play a little volleyball on this, so I'll go wide over here to Ryan.
Work works, and I quote the movie on that. I think the function of finding your purpose has impacts that are immeasurable in dollars and cents.
Okay, fair. Jake?
I would say the dignity of work and how it can promote human flourishing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think about that a lot myself too, but I've seen this like 4 times, and I've read all his books. So.
An important theme that I took away was entrepreneurial competition, having the passion and the drive to work and be able to make a living. I think that sticks with a lot of people here.
Yeah, okay, I think that's fair. And I think that what's great is all of these themes and what each of you is talking about is really are things that are such a part of the Babson community, right? So I'll do another, and then maybe I'll ask you for some more things. And I think we're going to take some questions from the audience. So I want to feel free for anybody to jump in up there. Think about, I think in this film what we saw was a bunch of different actors, parts of the world, and I mean actors as in, actors obviously, like individual actors, parts of the world. programs, people, perspectives. So which one is the first one? Which one's the first one? Like when you think about this movie, which actor, people, perspective did you think of and why? Jake, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, the first one that came to me was in India when they were in the one massive slum. And I identified a lot with what he was talking about, where he said, Americans think of slums as just everyone's begging. And then you go in and you look behind the door and you see that it actually has brought people up. And I think that a lot of times folks talk about a living wage. And so we take what our definition of in America, a lot of times of what a living wage is, and copy and paste wherever you want to put it. And I think it was really eye-opening to hear a different perspective on that, where it was not what we in America would say is a living wage, but it was what might be considered better than what they had before. And I thought that was just really interesting perspective and a new way of looking at things.
Okay. And I'm not going to force you guys like it's a classroom where you can't say the same thing or the same actor, right, as someone else, because that's tough, because it may end up, I don't know, I'm coming back to someone over here and there, and then you'll be the fourth person, you'll be like, oh my God, I was going to say that, so I won't. But Michael, I'll go to you. What actor, region of the world, whatever it was, struck you, the first thing when you think about this film?
I think the two people that really struck out to me was the man from India and then the family from Kentucky, the coal miner family. The man in India saying that people are now starting to hear the sounds of machinery. There's passion. People have a motive to go to work and to create and invent, be entrepreneurs. I think that's a message that definitely needs to be heard. And in the family in Kentucky that are struggling with these social welfare programs, and I think in the video one of the family members said, not having a passion, not having a desire, not having a opportunity to fulfill any opportunity. He said that is poverty, and I think that's important to emphasize.
Yeah, it was like he looked like the crazy old mayor from Inez, right? And he was
Yes.
like, "That's poverty, man," right? That was striking. So, Olivia, what do you think?
I think that I found the couple and the story in Denmark to be really interesting. I think that we talked a little bit about Denmark earlier before the film, but now after watching it, Denmark is known as being such a happy place, and some of the Scandinavian countries are known as being this like utopia. And I thought it was absolutely really interesting to hear that couple talk about how if you're different, if you have something that you want to make yourself stand out, Denmark is not that country for you. Denmark is that one. They said, I think the husband said that it was a one, they're people of one, they're a country of one. And I think that that's something that we need to really take into consideration when we're looking at some of these other countries in the film that we're showing about. There might be in some sort of slum, but they still have something that defines them as something different. And that's not something that's in Denmark. And I think that that's something that Arthur was trying to point out that we have in the U.S., and we shouldn't take it for granted.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think it's interesting, and Ryan, I'm going to come to you, but I think it's interesting that, Dr. Brooks obviously has a perspective, and but I think what he's trying to point out, particularly in that example, and this is true for all of our countries and societies, is like no place is a utopia. Nobody has this right. Like we like to think in this country that we've created the greatest society ever, and I might believe that, but that might be because I was born here and I came from right. But no country has it all completely right, and we can all do better. And I think that point, Olivia, is really true. Is like, don't pick out just the things that you say, they do it right and I want that. You get everything. You don't just get the things you want. So it's a little more nuanced, right? And it's a little more complicated than we sometimes think. So, Ryan, one actor one of the experiences that resonated most with you.
So I think since I am the last person to go, I'll elaborate on what Olivia said a little bit. The couple from Denmark, they are the antithesis of everything we believe in. They are, they have all the material goods, but they lack what we would define as that American dream like purpose. And then if you look at the mother from India, they both have the same goal, which is to raise their children and to pass that legacy on. So maybe we have to stop looking at the end goal and looking at how we want to accomplish our dreams. And I think that gives kudos to the title, which is The Pursuit. And are there different ways to pursue the same end, which in the case of the movie would have been raising a healthy family. Another example could be creating a positive impact in your community. So,
Fair. Let me think about this. Again, as a community here for us at Babson, you think about all the opportunity we have there, beyond the education, all the co-curricular programs, all the great opportunities that we have here. Do you see themes or connections between what we do here or what we could do here and some of the things you see in this film? And I'll just open that up, and whomever wants to jump in on that can. Michael, go ahead.
I think that the theme of having access and the ability for opportunity, because if there's not a government system, or if there's not opportunity that allows opportunity for people, it's going to be hard to rise in the corporate ladder, or and make yourself successful and help your family. And I think that a great thing that Babson does is teaches young entrepreneurs how opportunity can arise anywhere, even if you don't know that it's in you. Like freshman year being an FME, no entrepreneurial experience, not running a company for the first time, but the ability to work together in teams and having the opportunity to come up with new ideas and to share your thoughts and opinions. That is fantastic that Babson is doing, and that can definitely relate to capitalism.
Okay. Others? Yeah, Olivia, go ahead.
I would say that the way that I saw some of the ideas that were being brought up in the film versus what's happening here at Babson is we might think of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial as a cookie cutter definition, someone who is in a corporate environment, a man or woman who wants to have a successful Fortune 500 business or some sort of success. And I think that something that was pointed out in the film, which is really important, is that to be an entrepreneur, anybody can be an entrepreneur. So the people that were in the village in Diwali, the people that were in New York, wherever it was in Washington, D.C., those are all different variations of an entrepreneur. And I think while Babson focuses a little bit more on the polished version of an entrepreneur, it also does allow us to do more than just school and be able to take these entrepreneurial ideas and bring them home and wherever home is for us. And I think that that's something that maybe we can work on a little bit more at Babson, is to take these ideas and expand them outside of this kind of corporate culture and expand them into our communities that need to be having that development and that growth.
Awesome.
Can I further that point?
Yeah, sure.
I think that one thing Babson does a great job of is separating the idea of entrepreneurship as a profession per se and entrepreneurial thought. So entrepreneurial thought is something that you're not predisposed to have, you're not born with it, it's a skill that can be acquired. And you can take that into any social setting, in any industry, for profit, not for profit, as you saw with Dole Inc., I believe. And that entrepreneurial spirit is the essence that gives people purpose in their work. So I think before the money, before the external rewards, you have to have entrepreneurial skills.
Yeah. Jake, any comment on that?
Yeah, and it's to bring value, not just to you yourself, if it's you're working for yourself or working for others, but to also the other people that you're trying to serve. And so your business has many stakeholders, and I think we talk about that a lot. And so you can help the folks inside, and you're solving a problem for folks outside. And so I think that when I think about this film and I think about Babson, I think about how can we take what we're learning here about being entrepreneurs to a place to allow others to pull themselves up and also to help pull others up and pull them out of it. And I think the folks who created that organization in New York City, they had that thought in mind when they created it. It might be a not-for-profit, but they're still helping people overcome wherever they are and teaching them skills that they know they'll be able to go and use. And I think that those types of conversations that I've had here at Babson are the ones that are really the ones that go out and change the world. You know, it's not the unicorn idea, but it's definitely the one that sticks out the most as far as doing, as the Salvation Army says, it does the most good.
Yeah, the Doe Fund in New York, my immediate reaction when I first read about it and then saw it in here was, how come we can't replicate that in every large city in the United States, right? Yeah, sure. What about this idea of the title, right? So when you think about this, like, what does that mean to you now, the pursuit? Like, when you think about why he titled it that way, why do you think he titled that way, and what might you say about that?
I think he might have brought the title as something that we weren't supposed to really understand until towards the end of the film. At least that's how I personally interpreted it. I definitely was thinking about the title throughout the film, and obviously he had the intentional closing of the film being kind of explaining a little bit of the purpose of it. But I think what it is now, as we have already watched the film and we know the title and we understand that at least his personal viewpoint of it is that we're all looking for this happiness, and it doesn't need to be something that we are happy all the time. But I believe at the end, something that was really impactful, that really resonated with why it was called The Pursuit, was almost every single person that they interviewed at the end, in a definition of what makes them happy, what's their pursuit of happiness, it's to do something to make someone else happy. And to have that action where you're going to do something and that satisfaction is going to come from helping someone else. And that's kind of the pursuit of life that we all need to try to embody to be able to bring each other up, and not necessarily just focus on the profit and the money and the wealth.
Right.
And it's a continual thing. You know, it's not the finish line of happiness. It's the constant pursuit and consistently trying to make helping other people and continuing to go in that. It's not just a final thing. I think it was also a little bit of a political statement, and he's kind of talked about that a little bit, because he was kind of combating some of the things that we see out in culture. And it's, you know, no one has it right. No one's ever had it right. You know, we're imperfect people by nature. And so, but we can continue to pursue that perfection, continue to work on that to get better.
Yeah, I mean, there's no finish line, right? I mean, I like that. I mean, that's one I keep a lot because, well, that keeps you working, right? There's no finish line. Just, what about you guys? Pursuit, what do you know?
Well, I think to make the pursuit analogous to a sports competition, the euphoria of winning the event, whatever sport you play, it only lasts so long. But you're building relationships and building experiences over a time that precedes that given moment, and those you can carry after the moment as well. So if we stop fetishizing the end and we become more conscious of the process, then we can develop a future that's stronger for ourselves and not completely reliant on our past experiences and past triumphs, because those will eventually fade and be stuck in the past. And we need to be able to take those to the future, hence the pursuit, which is ongoing forever.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, with the pursuit of happiness being defined at the end by Thomas Jefferson in the Constitution, how we can apply it, like at the beginning of the movie, he was saying pursuing something as in pursuing opportunity, pursuing free markets, capitalism, even free enterprise. But at the end of the film, when he talks about how people can find their own happiness in other ways, and I think we explained it earlier, how everybody has their own definition of happiness, but it's all about finding the right balance of the individual and the family, of how we can all find that happiness through opportunity.
Interesting. I think I'm seeing hands out there. I'm not sure, but I know we have mics set, so if you want to go to a mic, if you have a question, feel free. And I don't know if it would be questions. Now it's going to get tough, folks. They're going to start. Questions or comments, so.
Not a question, but my comment on the prompt you guys were just answering. I think that a huge thing about the pursuit is the purpose that we have as human beings. What is your purpose? What do you want to do in your life? For some people, that's social entrepreneurship and bringing values to others. And for others, that might be fulfilling their own greed and making a corporation that drives them, fills their pockets. But a huge part of that, again, is your purpose as a human being. What do you want to do? The pursuit, it depends on the individual. And finding your purpose and how you move forward in life, that's a big thing, because we saw what happened in Inez when everyone's relying on social welfare and government programs. You kind of feel useless as a human being. While if you're able to, help other people and you feel like you're accomplishing something in your life, that's a big thing for humans. So that was my take on the question.
Yeah, I think so. It goes back to that point about the dignity of work that somebody brought up earlier, so thank you.
And no one's talked about greed yet, and I think that's really important. He didn't leave that off the table. He didn't kind of, ignore it. And I think that he talked about it in a really great way, and how, having morals is also part of all of capitalism and being able to use it. And, capitalism and free market enterprise is amoral. It's a tool. But it's really about you and your pursuit to be able to use your morals to do that in the right way. And I think that's where a lot of the pain comes from, and that's where a lot of the folks who are these organizations that we saw in Barcelona and in outside, Occupy Wall Street. It's the greed that's associated with that, and I think that's something that. At Babson, we talk about a lot, like, what are you going to do about it? It's not just about the bottom line. It's about the everyone that's associated with it.
Great. Thanks, Jake. Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming in today and putting this together. I think the film did a good job of highlighting the benefits of a free market system, but I think that the question, is capitalism good or bad, is the wrong question to ask, because I think people who have thrived in capitalist systems will obviously say it's good, and people who have suffered will say it's bad, and both sides are right. Capitalism clearly does provide the opportunity for social mobility and for purpose-driven lives. But at the same time, even within America, which is a capitalist society, we see massive inequality, and we've contributed to human rights abuses and environmental degradation abroad and that sort of thing. So I think the right question to ask that's a little less divisive is, what problems are we facing even within capitalist societies, and how can we leverage the benefits, the advantages of capitalism to enhance the system and mitigate the harmful effects? So, it's more of a comment, but I'm just curious to hear your perspective on that.
Could I weigh in on this? I think greed and cronyism are the two biggest issues, because I think it's important to differentiate the structure of capitalism, the one that we have in our country today, which is imperfect. It is undoubtedly flawed, with the essence of capitalism, which is the ability to create opportunity, which starts from oneself and is not imposed on somebody by a government, for example. So I think we need to address the cronyism that occurs at the higher echelons of society, and the implications that will have for people of lower classes who represent a majority of the population would be huge, because they will feel that they have more of an equal shot, and they will feel a greater sense of dignity. So unless the majority of people are able to feel that themselves, then it will have no effect. So I think empowering people within the majority of the population is so important.
I'd say if anyone else wants to jump in, I think it's a great question, and your point's exactly right on, right? A word I use a lot is nuance, right? There's not enough nuance in what we do. People try to make polar opposites, and I'm not even talking about what's going on in this country right now, but just in general, we too often try to make statements about things and say it's this or it's that. So I think your point's right on point. It's like, how do we take the system that we have and do better with it to make better for all? And I do think it's about pursuing, as we see here, as we talk about in entrepreneurship on this, opportunity, right? Making sure there's opportunity for all to be able to do what they want. In this case, Arthur's talking about the opportunity for happiness, right? Making sure everybody has their happiness. But I think your point's exactly right on.
I think the biggest tool we have in the free market is our choice and what we can do with it. Because the whole basis of it is if someone wants to go out there and sell something, they'll sell it if someone wants to buy it. And if people stop buying, then no one will be selling. And so we can use that as an opportunity to make our choices, send our dollars where we want them to go. And it's admittedly easier said than done because there will still always be people that will want to buy things that are at odds. But I think that's one small way that we can make an action. And then the other one is, we're early on in our careers. We have a lot of opportunity to go ahead. I mean, Ben and Jerry, they needed free market enterprise. Starbucks needed free market enterprise to do what they did. They tout socialism, but really it was free enterprise that allowed them to create the businesses that they didn't do the good that they did. And so I think that for us to be able to create businesses like that, I think that's where we can also make an impact here and kind of redeem capitalism.
Yeah, I think an interesting point on what Jake said and where you started us from is we think about systems, right? Whether it's socialism, capitalism, any system we have. But systems are made up of people, so we're the ones that can affect that and affect that change. So if we want to make sure that we do the best we can in the system of capitalism that we have here in this country, or wherever it is that we do what we do, recognize that as individuals, as individual actors, we have the power to do that, right? Either through engaging in that process within the government or engaging as individual people within our businesses to run our businesses that way to achieve the goals that we saw in this film. Anything else? Or you don't have to stand there. So good. Anyone else wants to? Oh, yeah.
Hi, thank you guys for being here. That was a really interesting movie. It was definitely a new perspective for me, but I enjoyed learning about that. So I guess my question is kind of similar to the one that was asked previously. So it's definitely interesting the way we can use, like the way capitalism was portrayed as like a system that provides opportunity. But that being said, there are actually currently a lot of people who are very unhappy with the way things are. And just because like what it may be one thing or may be another thing, it's not going to change the fact that there is a lot of dissatisfaction with the current system. So I guess my question would be, what is your solution to that? And that might be like a really big question for you guys to answer, but I don't know if, I feel like there might be better options than just continuing the way we are now, and maybe that might be implementing different policies, and I don't know what that would look like, but I do hope for a better future, and I don't know what that would look like or what that means to you guys.
Yeah, I think that's good, right? I promised all four of these individuals there would be no real heavy questions, but that was from me. So.
No, I mean, I was going to say, I think that asking that question, and it would be amazing if any one of us had the answer, but I'm not sure that really anybody in this room would have the answer. But I think, for instance, the fact that you're watching a film like that and asking those questions is just a testament to the fact that there is people, like you just said, that these systems that we have are made up of people. So, for instance, you watching that film and seeing that there's this question that you want to have answered, you're an example of that person that can be a part of making the system change so that we can have that better and that better future that we want. So I think, in all honesty, your question, even though it can't be directly answered by myself personally, I would say it's really just an inspiring note that you gather that from the film and that it's something that you even could work on in the future and be able to figure out what these other processes that need to be put in place to have a better future.
I think one thing about the system that personally in my life, I'll just stick to that because I think it's back to my point before, like it's all what we can do, kind of what we can touch here, you know, and as we grow and grow our influence, we can touch more and affect more. But I think right now, I believe that for example, the equity markets are too short-term in the way they're thinking about things. I think that is inherently caused a lot of issues. And so if you take a short-term gain for a long-term negative, there's a lot of problems that could happen with that. You know, for example, if you could invest in biodiesel and make a lot of money over the next 10 years, but then in 2030 you know there's going to be zero emissions, I wouldn't want to invest in that because then I know it's not a long-term positive investment. And so the average stock is held for less than 1 second because it's all these computers trading everything. And so how can you create value when your shareholders are inherently holding your business for less than 1 second? You don't even know who these people are. And there's managers who are going out and saying that they don't know what stocks they have in their portfolio because they don't care. They just look at the beta. What's the positive that they're doing with it? And so if there's a lot that I can do as I invest my own personal money or I talk to other people about things, I don't have an aspiration to be a portfolio manager, but I think that's something that we could do and we could talk about. And we could talk about, hey, you know what? That sounds great now, but what's the long-term effects of that? Why are we looking at quarterly reports and not like the long-term strategy? It's important to make money today, absolutely, but are we cutting off our nose to spite our face? That's it.
Yeah, I think to bring up simply that's that short-termism versus long-termism. I mean, that's a problem in our markets, and part of the problem in the system that needs to be addressed and fixed. Anything on this, guys? Before
I think that your question stems on like how people might be confused and upset of how, like, you see all these companies and businessmen and women making millions of dollars and seeing people still in poverty, like very, very poor. And I think that having the confusion like that is a great question because it shouldn't be that way, especially when we're putting in trillions of dollars. Like in the movie, they said trillions of dollars were put into social welfare programs to help impoverished communities. But you can see that the percentage of poverty has been stagnant. It hasn't been moving up or down. It's just been a stagnant line. And I think that it's important that especially like these other programs that are teaching young men and women to not only just become more educated about opportunity, but to look beneath themselves and to find deep down like what exactly is their passion and what do they want to do and how they want to support their family. And I think that in a lot of these areas, there's not a lot of opportunity to do that. And I think that having more of these programs to teach people to climb the corporate ladder, to be passionate about going to work and to not rely on social welfare programs, I think that can be very beneficial to society.
I think the essence of both philosophies, capitalist and socialist, are inherently good because it's good to have opportunity and individual purpose as a human being. It's also good to have a safety net because that encourages me to take risk. And I know that if I fall, then I will be supported by my fellow community. But what I think the flaws in both systems come down to is a misallocation of resources. I was a history major before I came here, and we looked at Sudan, the newest country in the world, and their issue was not a lesser amount of resources. It was the way that the resources they were being given were managed. So if we look at that at a macro scale, we have more food production now than we ever have, thanks to the Green Revolution and decades of technological advancement. But we still have people, even in our own country, that don't have access to basic staples, and that's something that needs to be addressed. So whether it's dollars and the way that social welfare programs are treated, or it's a basic human need like food, it comes down to the way those resources are allocated. So I think that is the overall goal to solve that issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am going to be cognizant of the fact that we said we would hold you here. So it won't be like my classroom, which Jake knows always ran long, right? Because we were having such a good time, I think, or at least that's what I would say to folks. And I want to be cognizant of our hosts here too, who probably have families to go to. So it is 7 o'clock or a little after, but I want to give each of you an opportunity to say one last thing if there's anything you want to say about the film or just what it made you think about, and as you go forward on this. So I will start with Olivia.
I think that, kind of to wrap up my final thoughts of the film, and after hearing everybody's interpretations of it and how each one of us, even up here and you guys asking questions, it all made us think of different things. And I think that is something, and I know we talked about this before the film started, that we would love for this to be shared with a larger percentage of the Babson community and people outside of the Babson community, which hopefully that'll be able to happen in the future. But I think something that really stuck with me and that I want to take away from this is the definition of wealth. And I think that was something that struck me really personally, just because I think at a school like Babson, from the first class of FME, we walk in, we are looking for profit. We're looking to have our FME companies be successful. And while we're not graded on how much money our FME companies make or lose, at the end of the day, we'd be lying to ourselves if we said that our mentality of a successful business isn't somewhat revolving around the profit. And I think that understanding, based off of what Dr. Brooks said about how the difference in wealth is not just about the money and the dollar amount, it's about the satisfaction and the gratitude that you get from something, and that's something that you're always pursuing, and it's not just the cash in the bank. So I think that definition is something that can be shared to anybody, and I think it might add a really insightful perspective to people.
Great. Well said, Olivia. Thank you. Jake.
I'm excited. I'm excited to be able to go out and create value. I think, I'm here at Babson because it is #1 for entrepreneurship. I came here to learn how to start businesses, thanks to your class, new venture creation. But I'm excited to go out and be able to teach these. I want to be able to take what we have here and bring it to folks who really need it. Bring it to folks who can really be benefited by what we're learning here at Babson. Seeing the statistics and what was said in the movie was just eye-opening and really encouraging that I'm in the right spot, learning the right things to be able to make a real difference in the world.
That's great. Ryan, I'm going to go to you. Michael, I'm going to give you the last word.
Sure. So I think probably my favorite line from the movie, and I'll paraphrase it, is that if you don't have hope per capita, then the GDP per capita is irrelevant. So we need to start putting people first, and we need to lead our lives with philosophies that come from ourselves, that aren't the result of groupthink, because the only way we can promote diversity is if we are actively enforcing our own beliefs. That's part of the pursuit, and that's the way that we can actively pursue happiness all the time.
Great. Michael.
One other final comment that I think that needs to also be addressed is that Brooks was saying how some people see capitalism as this evil governmental structure, and how people, at the end of the day, some people just don't understand what capitalism is. The people chanting in the streets in Barcelona, people protesting here in the United States, they just don't understand how certain elements of capitalism can create more opportunity and can help drive people out of poverty, not drown people in it. And I think that it's a shame because I would have liked to have more people here to watch the film, especially seeing how India greatly improved. It was very shocking to see the numbers for them, especially being under a democratic socialist country, how impoverished a lot of people were. And now that they are adapting entrepreneurial ideologies and in a governmental structure of capitalism, more people are creating opportunity for themselves, and I think it can definitely be adapted in today's U.S. history.
Thank you. I said last word. I meant last word from you guys because I'm taking the last word, right? But when you said that, I've been thinking about this. Wouldn't it be interesting to get a student or two from Spain, Denmark, a couple from the US, and India and places and get them together to view this movie and talk about it? It would be interesting. I thought about this because I was thinking, who's in the audience from India here? What would they think about it? And the lights are shining in my face, so not that I could tell definitively, right? But I think that would be interesting for us to do. And there's a lot to do. So the first thing I want to do is I do want to thank everyone involved in our our underwriters from the Butler family and the Butler Institute for Free Enterprise through Entrepreneurship, because from their generosity and all that they've gained through what they've done to underwrite what we do, we couldn't get together and do these things without them, so I want to thank them. A second thing I want to say before I close is, if this stimulates your mind to think about these things, and you think this is interesting and you think you have solutions, someone put a bug in my head at one point, like got in Arthur's head, like, you could do this, right? It's what I do. So if you have any interest, like, did you ever think about higher education? Did you ever think that, like, you could do what Arthur does and what I do for a career? It's interesting, and work on these problems from a theoretical but practical experience. So if you have any interest in that, I would encourage you to reach out to me. The last thing I really want to say, I want to thank everyone for coming, but I want to encourage you and remind everyone here that's up on the stage and everyone out there that this is the beginning, right? This is the beginning of a conversation that we want to have on issues like this. And that as we continue in the Institute and continue here at Babson, that we'll be able to continue to have richer discussions, to really dig in and debate on these things, and maybe together we can help find solutions to some of the issues that still persist in the systems that we have. So with that, I'll close. I'll say thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you again to our colleagues in Sorensen for hosting us, and have a good evening. Thank you.